You're listening to Alcoholics Alive, where recovered members of Alcoholics Anonymous share their experience on how they live AA as a way of life. None of our participants get paid or speak for AA. Here are your hosts, Shank and Wayne. If anyone listened last week to Bentley on the fourth step, we're hoping that maybe you can locate his grandmother and tell her that we apologize for him stealing her car and drinking all of her vodka.
That's right.
Yeah. So, hey, welcome. Appreciate everybody joining today. We've got a great episode lined up. Remember, we're recovered alcoholics that have gotten recovered by taking the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous out of the book Alcoholics Anonymous. So we're grateful to share our experience with you today. Shank, what's our topic today?
Well, our topic today is step 5. So admit your wrongs. Step 5 reads, admitted to God
to step 5?
Well, we're going to find out today from our guest,
right.
but
Okay.
Step 5 reads, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. And here's the reading that I chose. It is from the book Alcoholics Anonymous, page 74. That's the 4th edition, 2001. And it says, having made our personal inventory, what shall we do about it? We've been trying to get a new attitude, a new relationship with our Creator, and to discover the obstacles in our path. We have admitted certain defects. We have ascertained in a rough way what the trouble is. We have put our finger on the weak items in our personal inventory. Now these are about to be cast out. This requires action on our part, which, when completed, will mean that we have admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our defects. This brings us to the 5th step in the program of recovery mentioned in the preceding chapter. So, that's what our topic is going to be today. Before we get to that, we have a great guest, Julie, on. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, I'm Julie, and I have a sober date, and that date is December 14th, 2006. And like I said, I'm really happy to be here. I will tell you a little bit about how I got here and sort of what my journey has been in a short time. So when I really got here, I had a belly full of beer and a head full of AA. That's shrapnel. And
that is definitely shrapnel, Julie. We appreciate you. That you're right in line with.
Yeah, I'm just giving you some new ones, maybe.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think
Anyway,
we
I did
one.
have a lot. I knew a lot about alcoholism, and I was still drinking, and I did not admit 1, 2, and 3 to myself. And so, after several treatment centers, and after a number of detoxes, finally got back from hopefully my last detox and hopefully my last sip of alcoholic insanity. When I got back, house was clear, nobody home. I had some still hidden bottles of liquor in my house, in the closet, under my bed, wherever. And I had actually really surrendered, or felt that I really surrendered before the detox. And I went to an AA meeting and surrendered, and 2 women took me to this detox. I get back to the house. Like I said, I really had thought I was done, but the thought crossed my mind that maybe just to take the edge off of being, home and having done that, I would take a little sip of this alcohol. So I found a little bottle, and that little bottle had a little bit in it. And I walk over to my sitting room, and I see myself lifting that bottle up. And 1, 2, and 3 just kind of happened for me. Um, I saw that I was truly powerless over it because I had remembered just a few days before surrendering and being in all that pain. I saw the insanity of lifting that drink up, and I saw that I could not do this by myself and that I had to do something. Um, all of that stuff came together after different sponsors, after different detoxes, after all of that. It just kind of went boom, and it was the best gift ever. So once that gift happened, I fell full force into working with my sponsor and joining this home group and doing whatever anybody said because at that time I just felt like I didn't know anything, and so I let Alcoholics Anonymous carry me. So that's kind of my brief description of me and Alcoholics Anonymous.
Did you clean out under the bed and all the places that you had that liquor hid?
That was later, but I had to do it on the phone with my sponsor.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good story. Tell us a little bit about your experience with taking step 5.
Yeah. So, like I had mentioned, I had been to a couple of treatment centers, and those treatment centers were really good. Um, they weren't Alcoholics Anonymous, but they were really good, and they introduced me to Alcoholics Anonymous. And in one of them, it was a longer term one, and I actually was able to do a fifth step at that place. I'll tell you a little bit about that fifth step. So
Yeah.
at this time, I'd done my very best to be as honest as I could. I was very studious. I did all my homework. I did all my stuff. I was the good, kid. And I went and I read my fourth step to someone who I did not know at all, like I'd never met before. And I was self-righteous and I didn't see any of my problems. And I believed all my resentments were well deserved. And I agreed that I had fears, but not too many. And I certainly didn't harm anybody really, because that list was short. So I do all of this stuff, and she, I wish I remember her name, but she started to talk with me about my defects. She would, kind of ease into, can you see that maybe this was affecting other people and maybe you harmed others? And like, no, this is
You couldn't see it.
justified. Look, this whole situation kind of happened because it was supposed to happen. And here I am in this wonderful space I'm supposed to be in. And no, I couldn't have hurt anybody else. If not, they'll get over it. Um, I mean, I was still in myself. I was still in my ego. I was still maladjusted to life. But I did not get it. And that was my first one. After that, I came back from there and I started to do a fourth step, but I did not do the fifth step. And 9 months had gone by and I drank again. And that's what led me to I had 9 months without drinking, but I didn't do the fourth and fifth step. And that's what led me to the next drink and to the last detox that I hope I have, that I just explained.
Now,
So
I'm
I'm sorry.
curious. Was that first fifth step with a counselor in the treatment center, or was it an AA member that came in?
Oh no, I was a counselor at the treatment center.
Okay. All right.
And I don't know if that person was recovered or not.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I'm not really sure I knew how all that stuff worked,
Sure.
even having known how all that stuff worked,
Right.
because I was just not right. Um, so the last fifth step that I took that had true meaning for me was with my sponsor. And it all happened really quickly in a short period of time because she had been with me for a number of years and we went through 1, 2, and 3 pretty quickly. the fourth step I sort of had already done, but I had to kind of redo and be as honest as I possibly could. And by this time I was relying on God, and that helped a lot. Um, and so on this one, I really did tell my sponsor and God everything that I could possibly think of. Like I tried to exhaust everything. It took several hours, maybe 4 or 5. Um, and then I did what she suggested, which was basically just go and think about everything and make sure to give her a call if I forgot anything. And I did. I had forgotten something. No, I didn't. I didn't forget it. I actually remembered it.
Yep. Stay
Um,
honest.
yep. So adult rigorous honesty. And so I called her up and I said, I need to talk to you about this. I haven't told anybody this ever. And so she listened to it, and it wasn't nearly as bad as I thought. And she shared some experience about it. And I felt clean. I felt like obstacles were removed from any kind of connection that I had with people, places, God. I don't think I've read and I've heard people talk about that it was like this amazing experience the minute it was done. It happened over time, but I can say that after I did that one, I felt like, okay, now I'm in. Now, now I feel part of. Um, yeah. So
You hear a lot of people that have that experience where once they're done with it, they say they just felt like they were a part of, and like they actually had, that maybe this could work for them. I think I may have said this on the last episode, but my first fifth step was, I guess you could argue it's the only fifth step. You could argue the rest of the inventories are 10 and 11, but anyway, we might talk about that in a minute. I mean, it was with a complete stranger. So it was an AA member, and I was in the asylum when when I did it, but it was. I've had people tell me, well, that's not AA, and well, it was an AA fourth step and an AA fifth step, even though I was in a facility. But it was with a guy that was an AA member. He was suggested to me because he had similar experiences that I had, and God, I remember I was just petrified and scared and to do it, but I believed them when they told me that, hey, if you don't do it, you're probably not going to stay sober. And when I shared that stuff with him, it was scary. But once I got started, it kind of started coming out, and I was as honest as I could be. I think there probably were a couple things, mostly centered around sex stuff, that I was not. I mean, I don't know if I was completely honest about. I have that experience with lots of people when you listen to fifth steps. It just seems like a lot of people have a difficult time talking about, stuff centered around some of their crazy sexual conduct, which is understandable. Of course, I know now that there's nothing really original or.
no.
The funny thing about it is now I was so afraid of that stuff back then. I'll tell anybody today. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm almost too easy to get the information out. It's like, but you know what? I mean, I shared all that stuff with a guy, and it took me 2 or 3 hours, and I did feel free afterwards. I'm like you. We sometimes talk about this electric experience, or even the book kind of implies that a little bit. I was glad it was over with, and I did feel freer and lighter, and I did feel more connected to God and to the program for sure. And for me, it was just kind of like one of the first things good I'd really ever done in my life.
Mhm.
It seemed like, and that I actually kind of completed it. Not that I was done with the steps, but I actually, finished something that I started out with, which was big for me at 22 years old, never having really accomplished anything in my life. Um, so I don't know. It worked. Been sober ever since.
Yeah. That's funny when you're talking about being open and free with some of the things that you have done or confessed that you would help at. I uh I sometimes have to be careful about that because, like the book says, I've got to make sure that I don't hurt anyone else, that this
Yep.
is really all about me. And there are some things that I don't really want to say here that
Sure.
that
Nor
I
yeah,
was
nor
able to
should you.
do. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, but what I'm saying is that I've made that mistake before. I have spoken and I've, kind of let some things out that I with an audience that should not have heard what I had to say. And so it can be pretty, it's freeing for me, but I have to be careful because it may not be freeing for them.
Yep. Yep. Shake, you got any questions for us?
Well, maybe. Um,
Or anything else?
well, okay, so here's a common one is how many hours should your fifth step take to make sure that you are thorough and
I,
honest?
I don't think there's a time limit. I don't know. It
The,
takes what it takes.
it,
What do you mean?
it's a good question, actually, because Julie had a good answer. It takes what it takes.
What
But
is that?
you'll hear stuff in AA nowadays where that, if it didn't take a certain amount of time, you weren't thorough.
Oh,
Now, Julie, we're a little probably lucky that we don't go to some meetings that talk about stuff like that. But if you get around to a lot of other, groups or meetings in certain areas, they'll, the fourth step has to be a certain length.
format. Yeah. Yeah.
And, the fifth step, if it didn't take 2 days, then, you weren't thorough enough. And
That's
I,
wild.
yeah, I, I think that Susie to answer the question, probably what Julie said, it takes what it takes. But I can tell you this, I've listened to a lot of fifth steps. I mean, a lot of fifth steps. And they've been anywhere from 20 minutes to 2 days. And it seems to me, this is just from my experience, that the majority of the best fifth steps, if you could, I mean, I know that's not probably not the way to categorize it, but the people that are most honest and thorough, they typically take 2 to 4 hours. And if you even look at people that have been sober for a long time, they'll tell you that, well, yeah, fifth step was a couple hours, or was, 3 or 4 hours. A lot of those folks that I've listened to that did 2 day four steps or a full day, fifth steps, I mean, I don't know where they're at. And almost like it turns into something other than really what it was intended to be.
Mm.
So I don't know.
Yeah, like a therapy session, maybe.
Similar to therapy, and like having to just hyper identify every little
Mm.
nook and cranny of thing. And I don't think that's what it's intended to do. It's intended to get the truth out and to get honest so that we can have enough like strength and power to move forward with our lives. And of course, other stuff's going to come up. We clean that up as we stay sober and work the rest of the steps. Anyway, that's my experience with it. I listened to a fifth step 2 weeks ago. It was about a 55 minute, about an hour long. Guy stayed. He's still sober 2 weeks later. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Well, my next question is if you have a sponsor, should you only do your fifth step with a sponsor?
Well, I happen to have read The Fifth Step with my husband who is not necessarily one of us today. And it said in there that it does not have, it doesn't even say the word sponsor in there. And it does not have to be your sponsor. It just needs to be someone that is closed-mouthed, that you trust, that will keep the information to themselves. It could be a clergy, it could be a stranger. I think Jerry just talked about it being a stranger. Um, and mine that was a stranger that didn't work. It could be anybody, but you just need to be able to get it out and have that person there that you trust and God with you, and then start letting it go.
Yeah. Yeah. If you follow the book, right, the book says it can be anywhere, anybody that understands what we're trying to get at. The I think that it's probably not a bad idea to do it with your sponsor. If you know, if they're helping you with the steps, and when you get to that one, I mean, it's probably a good idea to do it with your sponsor, but it's not necessary. And again, it's one of those things where you'll hear people say that if you didn't do it with your sponsor, that you did it wrong. I've heard that, and then I get calls from people where somebody they're taking through the steps or that they're sponsoring says they don't want to do the fifth step with them, and they want to do it with their clergy or with another AA confidant, or maybe even with a counselor or therapist, and the person will get all upset about that, or get like put away with it. And yeah, I just refer them back to the book. I mean, the main thing is be honest as you can and do it. Right? That's the main thing. It's just a confession.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got some people I've sponsored that did some of it with the clergy and some of it with me.
Yeah.
I know a dude that did some of it with his wife, which I wouldn't recommend that. I mean, I guess it depends on the situation, but
Or what the content is.
yeah, yeah. And I'm actually a fan of doing it with clergy. I think that's good, especially if you're involved in a religion or a practice that kind of requires that, or you got a good relationship with somebody. I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. The book supports that too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I had a couple of things I was going to say while you were talking, and I was holding it back, and now I've forgotten.
Well, bring it back up, Julie. Come
It'll
on.
come back.
What,
I must have
what do
gotten
you
back
think?
into my ego.
Gotten back into that old ego, huh?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's press on.
Well, so one thing the book does say, it says we must be, it kind of goes with Shank's question. We must be entirely honest with somebody if we expect to live long or happily in this world. Rightly and naturally, we think well before we choose the person or persons with whom to take this intimate and confidential step. Yeah. So
Yep.
now I'll tell you one thing. So I know some of our listeners do this. I'm not a fan of this. So there are a lot of people in AA now. It may have faded away, but it used to be popular to do your fifth step with multiple AA members. So you would be doing like 3 or 4 fifth steps, full fifth steps, with like 3 or 4, 5 different AA members.
Huh.
And that's actually a thing in AA. I just think that's nonsense. I mean, I mean, come on. Why do you want to rehash that stuff? They think they're getting, more perspective and, more insight into it. I mean, that's not the purpose of it.
Mm-hmm.
Purpose of it is to identify things inside of you that block you off and to be done with them. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Yeah, to keep rehashing that, it's a little silly.
Yeah, here's one of the things that I was thinking about. I was thinking about just the fourth step and how hard it was for me to do the fourth step, because I knew all the stuff that I had done wrong. I didn't think that everything I did was bad, but I still kind of knew deep down inside that I didn't do, there were things that I'd hurt there are things that I had done that hurt other people. But what ended up happening was once I was able to like write it on paper, that was kind of the next step. And what was important was going to the fifth step so that I just had three things to do. It's almost like I went level up. I kept it to myself, then I had to write it down, which was hard,
Yep.
and then I had to let it go, but just let it all out with God, with someone else, and with myself. And just getting it out was what really helped me.
Yep.
And the other thing I was thinking about was watching. You were talking about listening to other fifth steps. I was thinking about the beauty of seeing some of the people that I have worked with and who I have listened to the fifth steps with have listened to someone else's fifth step that is sponsoring someone else. And just that beauty is amazing. And I think I got, when I listened to a fifth step, I got a lot more out of it than I did when I said my own.
Mm-hmm.
It was just kind of, again, another leveling up. And maybe that leveling up is getting closer to God. I don't know. But something cleared up and made that connection stronger through this process.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard a guy say one time that when you're listening to a fifth step and the person is really being honest and sincere, that might be as close to God as we ever get. Is actually it's something to think about. I mean, it's yeah. I mean, it can be a very spiritual, special, powerful thing. Listen to a fifth step. Yeah. Shank, what else you got for us?
Well, I was just thinking like for me, I went to a 30-day treatment center. I did a fit step. I don't remember that actually. What I
Probably a good thing.
remember, what I remember from that time, which by the way, I have all of the worksheets from that time, which I could go back and look at. I'm 12 years sober. I just can't do it
Bring them
yet.
out. Nope.
Um, I also have every letter that I wrote to my sponsor while I was incarcerated. She kept all of them and gave them to me when I got out. Can't read those either. Maybe that'll be another season. We just read
Bring them out.
through,
We're going to have a
you
whole
know,
season on
the first
Shank's
year of my sobriety.
writings. Yes.
Um, but what I do remember from that time is my counselor in treatment. Well, there were two main counselors, and several of the women had been there longer than me, and they're like, "Oh, this one's an Al-Anon and that one's an AA," and I really did not know what that meant. I didn't care. Um, and my counselor did a really good job of not bringing the fact that she was an AA member into anything we were talking about. I probably did my fifth step with her. Once again, I do not remember. But that woman set me up with someone in Raleigh when I was leaving. So, like, she knew that I was an alcoholic and that I was going to need a lot of help. And so I greatly appreciate that. Now, when I did a fifth step before going to prison, here's what I remember about that. I remember being so afraid that I was going to leave something out,
Mhm.
like actually on accident. I was so afraid because I didn't want to drink again. And then I also remembered that my sponsor at that time, the woman that I was doing the fist up with, her husband was upstairs. And I was just like, why is he upstairs? Like, is he secretly listening? Like, and I just remember her being like, oh, he's going to stay upstairs. It's no big deal. And listen, I was willing, this is how I know, I was willing to go ahead and lay it all out there because I wanted to stay sober, and I knew people before me had done this step. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I guess if that guy's listening, then he's just going to know everything about me. Like that never came back up. And actually, that
Mhm.
guy, I don't know, ended up drinking again. I saw him in a meeting and he didn't even know who I was, so like, yeah, they were
Yeah.
divorced by that point or whatever. So it was just like, whatever. I thought that I missed out because when I was incarcerated, I had heard in AA meetings and I was willing to do what these women were telling me. And they said, hey, we'll come in. we can kind of hear parts of it, but like it's a group of us, your family are here, they shouldn't be hearing some of this. So you need to find some women who are incarcerated with you to hear some of this stuff. It can be different people. If you can't sit down for 2 hours, fine, but like you have to be willing to do this. So there were many women, who were alcoholics, not alcoholics, didn't care. We would just get into conversation and I'd, pull out my fourth step or whatever and just be like, oh, I've been through something similar. And so it was just kind of piecemeal to me, but I was completely honest. And, I was willing to do whatever anyone told me. Once I got out of prison, I just was like, hey, I didn't have the experience everyone else did. And I heard in meetings, my fourth step was 20 pages and my fifth step took 10 hours. And I was just like, well, that wasn't my experience. I heard a lot of things like sit down line by line, word by word with your sponsor. And I'm not saying anything is wrong with that. That's all I was hearing. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna get into, the master's degree level of AA and I'm gonna
That's
do
right.
all of this. And listen, that was a fine experience too, but there was a number of years where I felt like I was doing AA the way everyone else was. And now I've officially done it. And like, it just doesn't really matter. I did it the appropriate way to begin with. I was completely honest. I was open-minded. I was thorough. And, I'm kind of glad I'm on the other side of that. There were people along the way telling me that I wasn't, Miss AA, but I just thought they were uninformed like I had been, before I got to the next level or whatever. And I don't think it came off that arrogant. Maybe it did. But I just really thought like, wow, I've reached this level. One fifth step really stands out to me that I heard, and it was a woman, I couldn't do it at my house because of whatever. And so my sponsor was like, oh, you can do it at my house. And that was so nice. And I had a key to her house, and that was like crazy. I think she was out of town. And I started feeling it like maybe this woman wasn't sober. And but I'm like, no, I'm not going to question her sobriety. Like, oh, that would be so awful. And anyway, she showed up just like so drunk, like just drunk as a billy goat, just wow. And I couldn't believe it. And then she wants to, like, she kept saying, like, no, I haven't been drinking. And I was like, okay, well, if she's not going to admit it, I'm not going to call her out on it. And like, I was held hostage for 8 or 9 hours. And I'm like
Oh,
texting her husband. I got his number somehow and I'm like, please come get her. Like, I don't know what's going on. And so that taught me a lesson too. Like, yes, I need to be willing as someone that's helping some people, to listen, to work the steps, to guide them through that. But also, like, if I know someone is not sober, I don't have to be holed up with them for 9 hours
that's
listening
right.
to a bunch of
Yeah,
garbage.
yeah.
And I did get some heat over that one when I was like, this chick was drunk. Like, what did y'all want me to do? And they're like, well, did she say she was drinking? Like, there were people and I'm like, no, okay. She pulled the flask out of her purse. Like, I could smell it. Like, she was sloppy in it. Like, I don't know why this is so,
Yeah,
hey,
it's pretty
come
cut
on
and dry.
back. Get
Yeah.
sober. Like, it's not judgment, but it's like, I want to get out. I didn't have a driver's license at the time. I had been dropped off. It was a freaking nightmare. And so I've never put myself in that situation again. But it was a good learning experience of like, hey, this will probably happen again. Like, there are people who believe they're pulling the wool over your eyes who really want to get soap. They want it or whatever. Um, but like, I don't have to participate in that either. Like, I don't have to
No,
necessarily say, girl, you were just drunk, but there are other things. And I should have been talking to other people about that too when I had suspicions.
Was that me?
Although,
I'm just joking.
no, it was not. But because I just had it in my mind that I'm never allowed to like be like, hey, I think someone I'm trying to help is drinking, or, and so that was an instance where it's like, okay, I wasn't trying to gossip about her, but like I kind of had known leading up to that something wasn't right. So there were many lessons in that for me, but that one always sticks out because it was, wow, it was a doozy.
I've stopped several fifth steps because the person was drinking or using, and I found out like why they were doing it. Yeah, there's no sense in continuing.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's crazy.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing. If you commit to helping alcoholics, you're going to see and hear all kinds of stuff.
Hmm.
Yes, it's crazy and fun at the same time.
Hmm.
Well, I'll tell you what, I was meeting people in public places. I was
Yeah.
like, no, I will not meet anyone at my home, at anyone else's home. Like, we will meet at the Raleigh Rose Garden outside, okay? Like, we're going to be in public. I'm not getting hemmed up for 9 hours.
Well, where's the strangest place you've ever heard a fifth step at?
Me?
Yeah, or anybody.
Yeah, mine are really straightforward,
Straightforward.
where I've heard them. I mostly have them here at my house.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a good spot.
yeah.
I like the playground at the McDonald's.
That's nice.
The
Oh
indoor
my
playground. Yeah, the indoor play. I've listened to several at the indoor playground at McDonald's. Yeah, and not far from our home group.
God.
I have mine kind of doesn't
I,
count. There,
I I listened to one at the in the pantry closet
mm,
in a church. I've listened to several in closets.
yeah, that's,
Yeah.
hmm hmm
Oh man.
That makes a whole different meaning for coming out of the closet, I guess.
I guess
100%.
those people are free. They're free today.
Totally free.
Oh man. Shank, you want to move on to meeting shrapnel?
All right, time for meeting shrapnel, Julie. Meeting shrapnel is our segment of lore, myth, and sayings frequently heard in AA. We're going to decide if we're going to keep them or scrap them. Our first meeting shrapnel is ism. I seek misery. What do you think about that one, Julie?
I haven't even heard of that one. I don't know. You're just talking about what the ism is?
Mm-hmm.
Like an acronym for it?
Mm-hmm. Have you ever heard an acronym for ism?
I don't know if I've heard a direct one, but I do know that it has to do with spiritual maladjustment. So maybe like internal spiritual maladjustment I've heard a while back.
What about one we've done previously is I, self, me? Ooh.
I'm
That
so
gets
sorry. I think I even in the treatment centers, I was not that big of a fan of all of the let's do it together, you know. I even forgot what it was. Let's read Fifth Steps together.
oh
So sorry. I know some of them, but I don't know all of them.
Jerry, had you ever heard this
Ju-
one?
Julie, don't be sorry. Be grateful that you've
right.
not been exposed to some of this craziness. Shank, I have heard this one. It was probably in a treatment center. Not that I was a patient in that treatment center, but like taking a meeting there.
I saw one of your sponsees
Yeah.
posted on Facebook. That's where I got it.
May have. Very, very likely. Very likely, and whoever it was, just you can talk to him. Just keep it to yourself. I don't know. Ism. Well, we got all these isms. Maybe that's what the fifth step is about. It's getting in touch with your isms, not actually identifying things that block you off. It's
Maybe.
getting in touch with your isms. I seek misery, huh?
But even
kinda-
that, wait, that just doesn't make sense.
That's right. That's what I was thinking. I
I
wasn't
sense.
seeking misery. I was trying to just check
Yeah.
out, man.
Yeah, that's like trying to list one of what might be a defect or something. I don't know.
Hmm
It's similar, yeah. It's I seek misery. maybe it's talking about like kind of in line with the idea of we're always sick, or you're always going to have the ism with you when you're sober, and that I don't know, but I've been taught the opposite. I don't seek misery. I'm seeking freedom and happiness and peace
solution.
and a solution.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a funny one.
You all appear ready to vote.
Julie, you going to keep it or scrap it?
I'm scrapping it.
Nice.
What about you?
I'm scrapping it, Shank.
Okay, it's out of here.
All right.
Our next meeting shrapnel is: fear is a mile high and a mile wide, but paper thin.
I'm sorry, I don't. What? What?
Where did you get this one?
This one, I believe, was from a Reddit thread.
Okay.
A mile high and a mile wide, but paper thin. Why is that important?
Good question. That's a good question.
That is a
I'm
great
sorry.
question, Julie.
I don't know. I don't know that one either.
Shank, I've never heard this one. You're
Me
going
neither.
to
This is
I
the
don't know if you-
dregs.
I don't know if you're digging deep or if you're just going to a higher level of shrapnel that we're not exposed to because we're not elite.
Potentially.
Mile wide and a mile wide, but paper thin.
I guess it's accurate. Fear is very big, but it's really not thick. I don't know.
I don't get this one personally.
Maybe because there isn't a lot of depth in fear. That fear is just kind of mostly imagined.
Imagined. Yeah, that could be it, Julie. Yeah. Well, fear can be dominating. And it can be overwhelming, and it can freeze us up and paralyze us. But
Yeah.
if we call on the power, we can get through it.
That's right.
Do you all
You're
want
gonna-
to keep it or
I
scrap
I can see Julie starting to use this at the group. Yeah, in her share.
I'll make that a habit.
it? Uh-huh.
I can see her busting it out on a Tuesday
Yeah.
night for the newcomer. You gonna keep it or scrap it, Julie?
Well, now that you say that, maybe I'll keep it.
Oh no!
I'm kidding. I don't think I can see any. No. Sorry.
I would not use it. I'm scrapping it.
Just out of here. All right, our third meeting shrapnel today is: there are no victims, only volunteers.
Shh. What?
Somebody say something.
Let's
This
cover
one?
meeting. Let's cover meeting makers make it, or put the
Well-
plug in the jug or something. What is this one? Where'd you get this one?
This
Did you
one
know
I know for
sponsee say it?
sure. No, was from a recovery group online
Okay.
in our area.
There are no victims. Are they referring to the alcoholic?
Now,
That's
Julie,
a great question.
You're the only smart one on this podcast today, so you're going to have to tell us.
We had you on hoping you could teach us something.
I have not. No. There are no victims, only volunteers.
We were hoping you
There's
could
no
analyze it.
victims?
Yeah, well, that might be it.
Okay.
Huh.
I need some context.
There are no victims, only volunteers. So I guess maybe what Julie said, we're trying to, we volunteer to be a victim, or we make decisions that put us where we're at. So it's really our fault.
Maybe.
Or
Yeah, maybe.
well, I can't. I think I probably have heard this, or I may have seen it on in that group.
You're blocked. You're blocked from the group.
Oh, it's that group.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, if you're out there listening and you're part of the Triangle Recovery group, you got to let me back in. I mean, I don't know why you would block me out. You've blocked me out now to where other participants can't even invite me back into it. So
Keep him blocked.
fix
That's
that.
kind of fun.
Please fix that. Anyway.
I could see myself. I'm changing the subject. I could see
Do
myself
it.
saying something like this to people, but not in this way.
What would it be?
What you just said. Basically.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have created our own shrapnel and we start using it. So if you've got one, Julie.
Lay it on us.
No, mine's too verbose. This is not shrapnel. It's
Now, we don't know what that word means, Julie. What'd you say? Verbose?
Verbose.
too wordy.
Okay.
Oh. We'll start using verbose. In my
We've got
share.
me and Shank are at the 5th grade education level, so you got to realize that.
I mean, I see what it's saying. Is all I'm trying to say.
Yes.
But
Yeah,
I
there's some-
don't see myself saying it to anybody like this.
Yeah. There's some validity to it. That's the case with a lot of them. A lot of them actually
Yeah.
have I
Yeah.
mean, they might be accurate or has some validity to them, but they're goofy.
Yeah.
So on this one here, just tell people, hey, stop being a victim.
Yeah.
Look at take your own responsibility.
Yeah.
Do y'all want to keep it or scrap it?
Well, actually, we could at the greeting, when we're greeting people, we could just say, there are no victims, only volunteers.
Welcome, you are a volunteer. Welcome, you are a volunteer.
That is awesome.
We're going to take that under advisement.
We will take that under advisement. So, Julie, you going to keep it or scrap it?
I would probably not keep it.
Okay. I'm scrapping it.
It's out of here.
Have you kept
Well-
any?
Well, in typical Shank and Wayne fashion, this season, Julie, we have not kept any.
We haven't kept anything since like season 3, probably.
I actually voted for one a few episodes ago, and I got shot down.
Shut down.
Do you know which one it was?
Don't tease the disease. I love it. Think about it. Don't tease the disease. Yeah, Hugh and Shank shut it down. I was going to keep it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Julie, you've been an awesome guest. We appreciate you coming on, sharing your experience with Step 5.
It's been a pleasure to be here.
And join us next week. We'll be covering Step 6. In the meantime, if you've not taken an honest and thorough 5th step, think about doing it and being free.
Freedom.
Thanks for listening. If you have a comment, suggestion, or just need help, you can email Shank and Wayne at freedom@alcoholicsalive.com. Remember, we're recovered members of Alcoholics Anonymous, but we do not speak for Alcoholics Anonymous, nor do we get paid. Join us next week for another great episode.